A very good evening to all the lovely listeners. It's time for Children's Bedtime Treasury with Let Emotion Speak. Don't forget to like the video, share the video, subscribe to my channel for more bedtime stories each night. Today's story is about Esmerelda the Ragdoll. At the back of the toy cupboard on a dark and dusty shelf lay Esmerelda the Ragdoll. She lay on her back and stared at the shelf above, as she had done for a very long time. It seemed to Esmerelda that it was many years since she had been lifted up by Clara, her owner, and even longer since she had been out in the playroom with other toys. Now her lovely yellow hair was all tangled, and a beautiful blue dress was creased, torn, and faded. Each time Clara opened the toy cupboard door, Esmerelda hoped very much that she would be chosen. But Clara always played with the newer toys at the front of the cupboard. Every time Clara put her toys back in the cupboard, Esmerelda felt herself being pushed further towards the back. It was very uncomfortable, and indeed, Esmerelda might have suffocated if it wasn't for a hole at the back of the cupboard, which enabled her to breathe. These days, Esmerelda felt very lonely. Until recently, a one-eyed teddy bear had been beside her on the shelf. Then one day, he had fallen through the hole at the back of the cupboard and was never seen again. Esmerelda missed him dreadfully, for he had been a lovely old teddy with a gentle nature. Now she too could feel herself being pushed towards the hole. She felt a mixture of excitement and fright at the prospect of falling through it. Sometimes she imagined that she would land on a soft feather bed belonging to a little girl who would really love her. At other times, she thought that the hole led to a terrifying land full of monsters. One day, Esmeralda heard Clara's mother say, "Now, Clara, today you must tidy up the toy cupboard and clear out all the old toys you no longer want to play with." Esmeralda could see Clara's small hands reaching into the cupboard. She couldn't bear the thought of being picked up by the little girl and then discarded. "There's only one thing to do," she said to herself. She wriggled towards the hole, closed her eyes, and jumped. Esmeralda felt herself falling, and then she landed with a bump on something soft. "Watch out, my dear," said a familiar voice from underneath her. Esmeralda opened her eyes and saw that she had landed on one-eyed Ted. The two toys were so overjoyed to see each other again that they hugged one another. "What shall we do now?" cried Esmeralda. "I have an idea," said Ted. "There's a rusty old car over there. I wanted to escape in it, but I can't drive with only one eye. What do you think? Shall we give it a go?" "Yes, yes!" exclaimed Esmeralda, climbing into the driver's seat. By now, one-eyed Ted had found the key and was winding up the car. "Away we go!" he called as they sped off. "Where are we going?" shouted Esmeralda. "To the seaside," replied Ted. "Which way is it?" asked Esmeralda, holding on to her yellow hair streaming behind her in the wind. "I don't know. We'll have to ask the way," said Ted. Rounding a bend, they came across a black cat crossing the road. "Excuse me," called Ted. "Could you tell us the way to the seaside?" Now, as you know, cats hate water. Whatever do they want to go near water for? Why should I help them? Thought the cat. "It's the other side of that mountain," he growled as he ran off. On sped the rusty car up the mountainside. When they reached the top of the mountain, they met a sheep. Now, as you know, sheep never listen properly. "Excuse me," said Esmeralda, "where can we find the beach?" Well, the silly sheep thought Esmeralda was asking where they could find a peach. Down there, she bleated, nodding towards an orchard in the valley below. Esmeralda and Ted leaped back into the car and sped off down the mountainside. But when they reached the orchard, there was no sign of water. Of course, just a lot of peach trees. Once again, they scratched their heads in puzzlement. Just then, a mole popped his head out of the earth. "Excuse me," said Ted. "Would you happen to know how can we find the seaside?" Now, the mole was very wise, but unfortunately he was also, as you know, very short-sighted. He peered at Esmeralda's blue dress. That patch of blue must surely be a river, and rivers run into the sea. He thought, "Just follow that river," he said, "and you'll end up at the seaside. Good day." And with that, he disappeared underground again. Esmeralda and Ted looked even more puzzled, for there was no sign of a river in the orchard. "Oh well," sighed Esmeralda, "perhaps we'll never find the seaside." "Don't give up," said Ted. "We'll surely find it in the end." They climbed back in the rusty car and set off again. After a short while, the car started to splutter and then it came to a completely halt at the side of the road. "What shall we do now?" cried Esmeralda. "We'll just have to wait here and see what happens," said Ted. It seemed like a very long time that they sat beside the road. At long last they heard footsteps, and then Esmeralda felt herself being picked up. "Look! It's a dear old tatty Ragdoll," said a voice. Esmeralda looked up and saw that she was being carried by a little girl. Ted and the rusty car had been picked up by the girl's father. "We'll take them home and look after them," the man said. Now they were in a real car, and before long the toys found themselves in a house. The little girl carried Esmeralda, One-Eyed Ted, and the rusty car upstairs to her bedroom and put them down on a windowsill. "I'll be back soon," she whispered. Esmeralda looked out of the window and nearly danced for joy. "Look, look, Ted!" she shouted, for out of the window she could see the road, and beyond the road was a beach and then the sea. "We reached the seaside after all," she cried. Esmeralda, Ted, and the rusty car lived happily in the house beside the sea. Esmeralda's hair was brushed and plaited, and she was given a beautiful new dress. Ted had a new eye soon on and could see properly again. The rusty car was painted and oiled. Most days the little girl took her new toys down to the beach to play with, and the days in the dark toy cupboard were soon forgotten. The little girl used to tell her friends the story of how she found her 3 best toys lying beside the road one day. And as for the toys, well, they sometimes talked about the strange day when they had such an adventure, and they'd burst out laughing. So kids, did you enjoy the story? The Adventure of Esmeralda and Teddy? Do let me know in the comments if you like the story. Today I have a riddle for you. You'll find the answer of the riddle in my next story tomorrow night. So the riddle is, I am not something rare, but I do have air. I cannot breathe, but I do have legs. I cannot walk, but we can definitely sit and talk. Tell me who I am. If you know the answer, write in the comments below. See you tomorrow with the answer of the riddle and another bedtime story. Good night.